Okay, so I want to kind of restart this video because I went on a little bit of a freaking half-hour tangent. So again, I want to talk about Chronicles of Narnia. I'm not excited for that movie. I'm not because it's first of all, I'm gonna say why I'm talking about this. Uh, I'm talking about this because it was talked about on the For the Homies podcast, on the latest episode of For the Homies podcast, which they brought up some good points, and there were some things I wanted to say, but again, I wasn't on that episode, so I want to talk about them here because I'm kind of there's some thoughts I've been kind of dwelling on, and there's some frustration I have with this, and of course I'm not the only one. I know a lot of people are frustrated with it because everything that's been mentioned around these upcoming remakes, none of it sounds like it's going to be faithful to the source material. With casting announcements, with how they're describing the plot, how they're describing what it's going to be like, none of it sounds good. None of it sounds interesting. It all sounds like a bastardization of what C.S. Lewis made. And what I'm referring to is specifically with like one casting Meryl Streep as Aslan. For those of you who somehow don't know, and I'm gonna inform you, not Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep, well, obviously is a female, um, who was cast to play Aslan, a male lion who is also meant to be Jesus Christ. You know, the savior of humanity, as described in Christianity. That guy. You might have heard of him. Kind of influential figure. Again, I find it laughable that they're casting a woman to play that. But I notice it's a common trend in Hollywood where they at least try to cast women to play Jesus Christ. And I'm wondering if that's because they think it's a horrible idea to have a man be a savior, a someone who is loving like Jesus was. And I'm not going to go into theological points about especially about whether Jesus whether Jesus was what whether to be like Jesus or not. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to talk about the Chronicles of Narnia remake, C.S. Lewis's work as a whole, and just that subject. So overall, one, the casting of Meryl Streep as Aslan is just a bad decision. This is not a dig towards Meryl Streep. She's a fine actress. She's very talented. And I've quite enjoyed some of the stuff I've seen her in. I don't remember the names of the stuff I've seen her in, but I know that I don't think I've ever had a negative impression of her when it comes to acting. But what truly infuriates me about this is, well, one, Aslan's a male, and Aslan is a male name. So, what are they gonna call her, Aslanda? Or are they just gonna say Aslan? And it's like, oh, don't explain why this lion with a mane, it sounds like a woman. When in actuality, in all reality, lions with manes are males. So having a woman voice a lion with a mane is kind of laughable. Now, if she does her best to do a masculine male impression, that's one thing. But with Greta Gerwig being a feminist, and notoriously most feminists nowadays hate men, or at least have a massive disdain towards the male population, I'm not surprised that a pivotal figure like Aslan would be turned into a woman. I'm not. It's not surprising. It's sad and honestly kind of laughable to say the least, because you cannot have a man be the savior. You cannot have a man show that he's loving and that he's willing to sacrifice himself for all of humanity, because that would imply that men are inherently good, or that there are good men out there, and we can't have that nowadays. No, we can't have that. All men are evil. All men are pigs. But again, I just so annoying to see that, and that that as soon as I saw that casting announcement, I was immediately turned off of the movie. I was definitely not gonna actually ever think it's gonna be good. Now, is there a possibility that could be good? There is a possibility. There's absolutely a possibility. However, I think it's completely like infinitesimal to say the least. I think it's so small that it's almost improbable. There is a possibility of it being good. But another thing that does frustrate me is, first of all, the two little bits of information. One, they say it's going to be around the 1940s, 1950s. I already don't like the sound of that. And two, it's going to be about rock and roll. And again, don't like the sound of that for two reasons. One, because the story of the magician's nephew, the Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe, and those books and the movies is they're set during and around World War One. Bit of a few decade difference there, would you think? And also, it's before rock and roll existed. Rock and roll was made and popularized around the 1940s. However, the story of, at least as C.S. Lewis wrote, was set during and around World War One, which, for those who don't know, that's when he fought in World War One. That's when he fought in World War One. So he set that in an era, in a time he knew about. Not in the future, not in the far, far past, but in the present day for him. And everything I've heard about it is none of it sounds even remotely faithful. None of it sounds even remotely accurate to the stories. It's ridiculous. I don't understand why. Correction, I do understand why. There's a lot of reasons why. For example, like I mentioned earlier, there's a common trend with making Jesus Christ a woman. I know there was a movie that was in the works where they were gonna do a telling of the story of Jesus Christ, and they were gonna cast him intentionally to be a woman, which would fundamentally change every single thing about Jesus' story. But to make Aslan a woman, it does not make sense because in the original movies, in the books, Aslan says something that kind of indicates who he is. It doesn't directly say who he is, but he says to one of the kids who came from our world in this story, "In your world, you know me by a different name." Now it's been confirmed for a long time that Aslan is meant to be Jesus Christ, because the lion and the lamb, Jesus is perceived and often viewed as the lion and the lamb. The lion. That's why the Lion, the Witch, Wardrobe. That's why Aslan is meant to be a manifestation of a version of Jesus Christ. But again, everything about this project does not sound good. Am I gonna give it a watch? Probably. Am I gonna like it? Most likely not. But again, everything about it just sounds so freaking horrible. Everything about it just sounds so bad, so inaccurate, so disrespectful of the source material. And I don't understand. I don't like how much they're gonna bastardize it, because they are. I have no doubt about that. Anyway, I'm a some of this rant down because I feel like I'm gonna go on for 40 hours. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. I want to hear you guys' opinions on Greta Gerwig's remake of Chronicles of Narnia, and let me know what you, like I said, let me know what you guys think about that, because it'd be interesting to hear your guys' opinions. Like, subscribe, and share on your preferred social media platform. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, and God bless.